Dave, we've already covered the surface burners, the 3 ignitions for the surface burners, and we talked a little bit about gas and propane, things of that sort. Let's get into the oven now. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Frank, here again we have 3 different ignition systems that we use for oven burners, starting with the standing pilot model, which we have here. Then we'll move into the glow bar, and we'll cover the spark lit. And starting with the standing pilot, one thing to point out is if the top burners are standing pilots, then the oven burner will also be standing pilot. Okay. And I guess in the last 2 to 3 years, new legislation has come about that says that if you have standing pilot ignition systems, you can no longer have a power cord. So that pretty well confines us to having, pilots on top, pilots in the oven. And what I'd like to talk about is, first off, we've used 2 different suppliers on standing pilot systems. The first one here that I have laid out on the table, this is the Harper-Wyman system, which we're currently using, and I guess there's more of these out there than there are the other system. You can tell it's a Harper-Wyman system by the way that the thermal bulb, or the mercury-filled bulb, I should say, fits into the pilot assembly. It's parallel with the pilot assembly. If you look at the other version, this is a Robert Shaw version. And the way to tell, if you can see that, let me turn it sideways a little bit here. With this one, the mercury bulb fits sideways into the pilot assembly. Okay, these will be on the models that are, 5, 6 years old. Still some of those out there, quite a few of those out there. Okay, they work very similar. There's not that much difference in the way they work. We'll get into the actual flame characteristics and what's going on here in just a moment, but the main difference between the two, the older model, the Robert Shaw, would modulate the flame if you're baking above 400 degrees. And what I mean by that, Frank, if you're baking at 400, the oven is preheated and cycles off. Instead of the flame going out, like all the other ones that we'll look at today do, this one will actually drop the flame size down to a smaller flame, and then as the oven thermostat cycles back on, the flame will come up full size.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't actually go away, it's always there,
right.
It's smaller.
Exactly, it modulates. Whereas the one that we currently use, the Harper-Wyman system, will modulate the flame size in broil, but it won't do it in bake at all.
Okay.
They will both modulate the flame in the event of a runaway condition, like a valve is stuck open, something like that, where the oven starts to get hotter and hotter. They both will modulate, and we'll show you how that happens in great detail here. What I'd like to do is first show the components, where they're located and what they do. Then we'll turn the oven on and let you see for yourself what's going on. And
conveniently, we have a range here with the door gone and a side missing.
Right, we've cost reduced this model. Don't tell marketing, they'll want one just like it. But you can see here that starting here we have the thermostat. Okay, we have 2 tubes going from the thermostat through the back of the range and down into the oven. And you can see the 2 tubes coming in here. Here's one for the pilot. And then the larger tube goes over to the oven gas valve.
This one?
Right. That brings the gas from the thermostat down to the oven valve.
Okay.
Okay, if you notice.
And that's the oven valve, I take it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, now what's going on, Frank? The oven is turned off, and you have a standing pilot right here on the pilot head, this being the pilot head. And all that does, that just maintains the flame so that you have ignition when you're ready for it, or when you need to turn the oven on. And this is a 2-stage pilot system. And what I mean by that is if you watch the pilot, I'll turn the thermostat on.
And it's right there, right? Okay.
And you see the pilot get larger. Okay, what that's doing is it's heating that bulb that's coming up from the oven valve. And that's a mercury-filled bulb. And as that mercury is heated by that flame, it starts to expand, so that once that mercury gets hot enough, the expansion rate is great enough, it will open that valve. That'll apply gas to the burner, and we'll have burner ignition.
So the gas will flow up through that tube after it comes out of the valve, and then it'll ignite the burner.
Right.
Okay.
Right. The whole thing takes 30 to 60 seconds.
Let's watch it here for a second.
Okay, it's not a real quick process.
There we go. Oh, we normally won't see that because there's a flat piece of metal that sits on top of this. What is that called?
That's called a flame spreader.
Okay.
Okay, what that does is it spreads the flame out, obviously by the name. It gives you a more even baking or broiling. Okay.
Good.